first of all, you both look fantastic.
Thank you.
You both look great, and especially considering when you really look at, well, you're not that.
Ozzy Osbourne's passing shocked the world, but what came next was something no one expected. Just a day later, his wife, Sharon, stepped forward and finally confirmed the truth, and it's left fans speechless. For decades, the Osbournes kept certain things private, but now, with Ozzy gone, the silence is broken. What did Sharon reveal and why now? Join us as we uncover the truth behind Sharon Osbourne's powerful message after Ozzy's death. Struggle in Aston. John Michael Osbourne, known to the world as Ozzy Osbourne, was born on December 3, 1948 in Birmingham, England. He grew up in Aston, a tough and heavily industrial area in post-war Britain. Life there was difficult for most families, and the Osbournes were no exception. The city was recovering from World War II, and jobs were hard, money was tight, and living conditions were poor. Ozzy was one of 6 children in his family. He had 3 older sisters and 2 younger brothers. Their home was small and crowded, with only a few rooms to share between all of them. His father, Jack Osbourne, worked long night shifts at a car factory. His mother, Lillian, worked during the day at another factory. They did their best to provide for the family, but there was never much money to go around. The children often wore hand-me-down clothes and had to make do with very little. There wasn't much privacy or space, and the house could feel chaotic and loud most of the time. From an early age, Ozzy had a hard time fitting in at school. He struggled to read and write, but no one knew why. At the time, learning disabilities like dyslexia weren't commonly recognized or diagnosed. Teachers often saw him as lazy or disruptive. Ozzy didn't enjoy school and was often picked on by classmates. He later admitted that the experience made him feel frustrated, embarrassed, and left out. Instead of receiving help, he was punished. This made him lose interest in learning. By the time he was 15, he had dropped out of school without any qualifications. With no education and few job opportunities in Aston, Ozzy began drifting into trouble. He started committing petty crimes, small thefts, break-ins, and mischief. At one point, he was arrested for breaking into a clothing store. He served a short time in prison. Being locked up was a shock for him. It wasn't glamorous or exciting. It was cold, scary, and humiliating. He said later that being in jail made him realize how far off track he had gone. His father, Jack, paid a fine to get him released. That act of kindness was a wake-up call. It made Ozzy think hard about what kind of life he was living and what kind of life he wanted. What saved him wasn't school or work. It was music. Ozzy had always loved listening to the radio. When he first heard the Beatles, something changed. Their sound, especially the voice of John Lennon, inspired him deeply. He dreamed of being a singer even though he had no formal training. He started singing in local pubs and clubs, joining small bands and trying to find his voice. Music gave him a sense of purpose and a way to escape the rough streets of Aston. It became his way out of a future that didn't seem to hold much hope. The birth of Black Sabbath. Ozzy's break came in 1968 when he met 3 other musicians from Birmingham: Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward. They shared his passion for music and wanted to create something new. At first, they called their band Earth, but that name didn't stand out. One day, they saw a movie theater showing a horror film titled Black Sabbath. They were inspired by how people paid to be scared. The group decided to make music that gave people a similar feeling, dark, heavy, and haunting. They changed the band's name to Black Sabbath. Their new sound was unlike anything else at the time. Most popular music then was cheerful, upbeat, and catchy. Black Sabbath went in the opposite direction. Their music was slow, loud, and heavy. Tony Iommi's deep guitar riffs, Geezer Butler's moody bass lines, and Bill Ward's pounding drums created a wall of sound that felt intense and raw. Ozzy's voice added something extra. His vocals were eerie and powerful. His lyrics often talked about fear, war, madness, and the supernatural. Fans were hooked by how different and bold their sound was. In 1970, Black Sabbath released their first album, Black Sabbath. It didn't sound like anything people had heard before. Critics didn't know what to make of it, but fans loved it. The band quickly followed up with their second album, Paranoid, later the same year. That album changed everything. It included songs like War Pigs, Iron Man, and the title track Paranoid. These songs became instant classics. They spoke to a generation that was dealing with war, political unrest, and uncertainty. The band's dark style matched the mood of the time, and young people connected with it. Black Sabbath's music made them global stars almost overnight. They were invited to tour around the world, and their concerts were packed with screaming fans. But Ozzy stood out even more than the band. On stage, he had wild energy. He would jump, scream, and wave his arms, almost like he was possessed. His appearance, long hair, dark clothes, and heavy eye makeup added to his mysterious image. His strange behavior, deep voice, and obsession with dark themes earned him the nickname Prince of Darkness. People either loved or feared him, but no one ignored him. He had created a stage persona that was unforgettable. At a time when most singers smiled and danced, Ozzy looked like a man from another world. He didn't just sing songs, he lived them. And while some people criticized him for being too dark or weird, fans saw him as someone real, someone who expressed things they couldn't say out loud. The band's music helped launch the genre now known as heavy metal. Many musicians later said Black Sabbath was their biggest influence. But at the time, Ozzy and his bandmates didn't know they were creating history. They were just making music that felt honest to them. But as the fame grew, so did the pressure. And soon, Ozzy would find that being a rock star came with its own set of dangers. Things were just starting to get wild for Ozzy, and it only gets crazier from here. The Fall of Ozzy. By the mid-1970s, Ozzy Osbourne was a global rock star. Black Sabbath had released several successful albums and toured all over the world, but behind the scenes, things were falling apart. The pressure of constant travel, performing night after night and trying to keep the band together was exhausting. Ozzy was already struggling with his emotions and confidence, and the fame didn't make it easier. It made it worse. To cope with the pressure, Ozzy began using drugs and drinking heavily. It started small but quickly grew out of control. Cocaine, alcohol, pills, he used whatever he could get his hands on. At first, it helped him feel numb, but over time it started to take a toll on his body and mind. He began forgetting lyrics on stage. He missed rehearsals. His behavior became unpredictable. He would show up late or not at all. Bandmates and crew didn't know what to expect from him each day. The rest of Black Sabbath were dealing with their own problems, but Ozzy's issues were the most serious. They tried to help, but nothing seemed to work. Ozzy was deep in addiction and didn't want to change. Arguments became more common. The band couldn't function properly. By 1979, the rest of the group made a hard decision. They fired Ozzy. It wasn't easy. Black Sabbath had started with Ozzy. He was the voice and the face of the band, but his constant drug use made it impossible to move forward. Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward all agreed that Ozzy had to go. They told him he was out. At first, Ozzy was in shock. Then came the depression. After being fired, Ozzy locked himself in a hotel room for days. He drank nonstop and used more drugs than ever before. He barely ate. He didn't speak to anyone. He sat in the dark thinking his life was over. In interviews later, Ozzy admitted that he was ready to give up. He thought he had lost everything: his band, his friends, and his career. He believed no one would want to work with him again. It was the lowest point of his life, but what Ozzy didn't know was that someone was already thinking about how to help him get back up. While Ozzy was spiraling, someone else was watching and planning. Sharon Osbourne had known Ozzy for a few years. She was the daughter of Don Osbourne, who had managed Black Sabbath in the early days. Sharon had grown up around the music industry. She was smart, tough, and used to dealing with difficult artists. She believed Ozzy still had talent, even if he was in a bad place. After Black Sabbath let him go, Sharon stepped in. She told Ozzy that his music career wasn't over. In fact, she believed he could do even better without the band. She offered to manage him. Ozzy agreed, even though he didn't feel hopeful at the time. Sharon became his manager, and soon much more than that. Together, they started building something new. Sharon encouraged Ozzy to form a solo band. She handled the business side of things, booking studio time and organizing meetings. She didn't let Ozzy sit around and feel sorry for himself. She pushed him to work, and slowly, Ozzy began to believe again. Ozzy had done what many thought was impossible. He had been kicked out of one of the biggest bands in the world and come back even stronger on his own. Blizzard of Oz sold millions of copies. It proved that Ozzy wasn't just a former member of Black Sabbath. He was a solo star. In 1981, Ozzy released his second solo album, Diary of a Madman. Once again, fans loved it. The album kept the same mix of heavy metal and theatrical sound that had made Blizzard of Oz so successful. Randy Rhoads played a big role again, helping Ozzy create songs that were powerful, emotional, and unforgettable. Behind the scenes, Ozzy and Sharon were becoming closer. Their professional relationship turned personal. They fell in love, and their bond grew stronger as they worked side by side. Sharon was more than just a partner. She was Ozzy's support system. She helped him stay focused and pushed him to keep going, even when things got tough. Ozzy's comeback wasn't perfect. He still struggled with addiction, and life on tour was chaotic. But he was making music again, and people were listening. He had a second chance, and this time he wasn't going to waste it. Ozzy was back on top, but the road ahead was still full of twists and dark turns you won't believe. A marriage of fire and fury. Before Ozzy Osbourne became known as part of one of rock's most famous couples, he was married to someone else. In the early 1970s, Ozzy met Thelma Riley, a schoolteacher, at a nightclub in Birmingham. They quickly fell in love and got married in 1971. Thelma already had a son named Elliot from a previous relationship, and Ozzy adopted him. Together, they also had 2 children of their own, Jessica and Louis. But from the beginning, the marriage was difficult. Ozzy was becoming more famous with Black Sabbath, which meant long tours, busy schedules, and more time away from home. On top of that, he was drinking heavily and using drugs. He has admitted in later interviews that he was not a good husband or father during this time. He missed birthdays, family events, and the everyday parts of being a dad. He rarely saw his children and didn't give Thelma the support she needed at home. As his addiction got worse, the distance between him and his family grew. Ozzy has openly said that his first marriage was a mistake, not because of Thelma, but because of how badly he handled it. He said he wasn't present and often didn't even remember key moments with his kids. He expressed deep regret over how things turned out and admitted that he failed his children during those years. Eventually, the marriage ended in divorce in 1982. That same year, Ozzy married Sharon Osbourne. Sharon was more than just his partner. She became the force that kept his career alive and held his life together. The two had already been working closely after she took over as his manager when he went solo. Their professional relationship soon turned into a romantic one. They got married and went on to have 3 children together, Amy, Kelly, and Jack. Sharon was tough and smart. She helped Ozzy manage his tours, music releases, and business decisions. While he continued to struggle with addiction, Sharon stayed by his side and did everything she could to keep things from falling apart. Their relationship wasn't easy. It was loud, emotional, and full of ups and downs. But they loved each other deeply, and despite many fights and setbacks, they stayed together. One of the darkest moments in their marriage came in 1989. During a serious drug and alcohol binge, Ozzy lost control and attacked Sharon in their home. He later admitted that he didn't even remember the incident. In a frightening outburst, he tried to strangle her. Sharon managed to escape and called the police. Ozzy was arrested and charged with attempted murder. It was a shocking moment that could have ended everything. Ozzy was ordered to go to rehab after the arrest. Sharon had every reason to walk away, but she chose to stay. She later said that she believed in Ozzy and wanted to give him another chance. The event left emotional scars on both of them, but it also marked a turning point. Ozzy began to understand how serious his addiction was and how close he had come to losing everything. Their marriage survived that moment and many others like it. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Sharon remained the most important person in Ozzy's life, his wife, his manager, and his support system. But even as they rebuilt their life together, the spotlight would soon turn their private world into public entertainment and chaos. Surviving a scandal. In 2016, Ozzy Osbourne's personal life was rocked by a scandal that nearly destroyed his decades-long marriage to Sharon Osbourne. The public was shocked when news broke that Ozzy had been having a secret affair with Michelle Pugh, a well-known celebrity hairstylist. The affair wasn't just a one-time mistake. It had reportedly lasted for about 4 years. Michelle Pugh later said in interviews that her relationship with Ozzy was serious and deeply emotional. She claimed it wasn't just about physical attraction, but something more meaningful. According to her, Ozzy made her feel special and valued. Ozzy, on the other hand, admitted to the affair but described it differently. He said that what happened with Michelle was part of a larger problem, something he had been struggling with for years. addiction. When Sharon found out about the affair, she was devastated. After more than 30 years of marriage, she felt deeply betrayed. She asked Ozzy to leave their home, and the couple separated. Sharon didn't keep quiet about what happened. She spoke openly on her daytime talk show, The Talk, where she shared her pain and anger. She said that while she had forgiven Ozzy for past mistakes, this time felt different, more serious, and more painful. The story quickly spread through the media. Headlines appeared everywhere, and the family found themselves under a microscope. Fans were shocked, and the public wanted answers. Ozzy, realizing the damage he had caused, made the decision to enter rehab for addiction. At the time, many people didn't fully understand what addiction was. Some were skeptical, while others applauded his decision to get help. Ozzy later said that he had recognized he had a problem and didn't want to lose his family over it. While Ozzy was trying to deal with the personal fallout, another wave of drama hit the family. Kelly Osbourne, Ozzy and Sharon's daughter, was furious at Michelle Pugh. She posted Michelle's personal phone number on Twitter and accused her of taking advantage of her father. Kelly's tweet caused an immediate reaction. Michelle ended up filing a lawsuit against Kelly for cyberbullying and defamation. The lawsuit was later dropped, but it made headlines and added even more stress to an already painful situation. Despite the betrayal and the very public mess that followed, Sharon eventually decided to take Ozzy back. After months of separation and healing, the couple began talking again. Ozzy said he was willing to do whatever it took to fix their relationship. He completed rehab, went to therapy, and publicly apologized to Sharon and their family. He admitted that he had hurt the people who loved him most and said he was truly sorry. But even after all that, life wasn't about to slow down for Ozzy. His past was still full of battles, and his future would hold even more challenges. The addiction that destroyed him. Ozzy Osbourne's battle with addiction wasn't just a phase, it lasted most of his life. From the earliest days of his fame with Black Sabbath, Ozzy struggled with drug and alcohol abuse. What started as occasional partying quickly became a serious and dangerous habit. He used a wide range of substances over the years, including cocaine, heroin, alcohol, prescription pills, and tranquilizers. The mix of these drugs often left him confused, sick, or completely unaware of what was happening around him. On stage, Ozzy was known for his wild energy, but his substance use often caused serious problems during live performances. There were times he forgot lyrics mid-song, or wandered around the stage looking lost. Fans loved his chaotic persona, but behind the scenes, he was falling apart. He experienced blackouts, periods where he had no memory of what he had done. These weren't just short moments of confusion. Sometimes he would wake up days later with no memory of where he had been or who he had talked to. Ozzy went to rehab many times. In interviews, he's talked openly about checking in and out of treatment centers throughout his life. Some stays helped for a while, but the pull of addiction was strong. He would often fall back into old habits, especially during stressful times or while on tour. Sharon and his family tried again and again to help him stay clean. Friends and bandmates also stepped in when they saw him heading down the wrong path. Still, Ozzy had many relapses. Even after periods of sobriety, addiction kept coming back. One of the darkest moments came in 1989. During a serious drug and alcohol binge, Ozzy lost control completely. While high and intoxicated, he attacked Sharon in their home and tried to strangle her. He later said he had no memory of the incident and was horrified when he realized what had happened. Sharon managed to get away and called the police. Ozzy was arrested and charged with attempted murder. The court ordered him to go to rehab, and the event became a major turning point in his life. Ozzy later called that night his rock bottom. He said it was the moment he realized how dangerous he had become, not just to himself, but to the people he loved most. Sharon chose to forgive him, but the memory of that night stayed with them both. Ozzy knew that if he didn't make serious changes, he could lose everything. In the years that followed, Ozzy became more open about his addiction struggles. He talked about it in interviews, documentaries, and even in his books. He didn't try to hide his past or make excuses. Instead, he admitted the truth. Addiction had nearly ruined his career, his marriage, and his family, but he kept fighting it. Even in his later years, he said staying sober was a daily effort. And as Ozzy tried to find peace in his personal life, his health began to bring even bigger challenges. Illness and farewell. In January 2020, Ozzy Osbourne made a heartbreaking announcement that shocked many of his fans. After months of speculation about his health, he revealed that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The diagnosis actually came in 2003, but Ozzy and his family had kept it private for many years. It wasn't until he had a serious fall in 2019, which led to surgery and complications, that the family decided to share the full truth. Parkinson's is a long-term neurological condition that affects movement and can lead to tremors, stiffness, and difficulty with balance. For someone like Ozzy, who spent most of his life performing, moving wildly on stage, and living in the spotlight, it was a tough reality to face. He admitted that the disease made him feel frustrated, sad, and scared. Simple tasks became harder. His energy and coordination declined. In the summer of 2025, just weeks before his passing, Ozzy Osbourne gave the world one last unforgettable moment. Fans were stunned and thrilled when it was announced that Black Sabbath, the legendary band that started it all, would reunite for a final performance. It was set to be Ozzy's farewell, a celebration of his long and wild life in music. The reunion concert took place in early July and brought together original band members Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler, along with special guests and family in attendance. Even though Ozzy's health had declined, he was determined to stand on stage one more time with the band that changed rock forever. The show wasn't perfect, his movement was limited, and his voice was clearly weaker than it had once been, but none of that mattered. The crowd cheered, cried, and sang along as Ozzy delivered his final renditions of songs like Paranoid, Iron Man, and War Pigs. For many, it wasn't just a concert. It was a moment in music history. Ozzy had given everything he had left for that night, and just a few weeks later, on July 22, 2025, he passed away peacefully at home. He was 76 years old. According to close family sources, he was surrounded by Sharon and their children. There were no hospital beds or bright lights, just quiet, comfort, and the people who loved him most. After years of illness, addiction, and personal struggle, Ozzy's life came to a calm and gentle end. Shortly after his death, Sharon Osbourne released a statement on social media. It was simple, emotional, and deeply personal. "My heart is broken," she wrote. "Ozzy passed peacefully, surrounded by love. He gave us music, laughter, chaos, and strength. He was my world for more than 40 years. There will never be another like him." Her words touched millions. Fans across the globe poured out tributes, sharing memories, favorite songs, and stories about how Ozzy's music changed their lives. Sharon confirms the truth. As Ozzy's condition progressed, he and Sharon began to talk seriously about their future, especially the possibility of becoming fully dependent or mentally impaired. Sharon revealed in an interview that she and Ozzy had signed legal documents for an assisted attempt to end their lives, also known as euthanasia, in Switzerland. This shocked many people, but the couple explained that it wasn't about giving up. It was about control and dignity. Sharon said that watching her father suffer through Alzheimer's disease changed the way she thought about aging and illness. Her father, music manager Don Arden, experienced a painful mental decline in his final years. She described those memories as traumatic, not just for him, but for the whole family. She didn't want her children to go through that same pain. So, Ozzy and Sharon made a choice together. If their mental or physical state ever declined to the point where they couldn't recognize their loved ones or take care of themselves, they wanted to have a plan in place. The decision to sign assisted dying papers was their way of taking control over what could happen in the future. They made it clear that it wasn't about being hopeless, it was about love. They wanted to spare their children the pain of watching them slowly fade away. The Osbourne children, Amy, Kelly, and Jack, supported the decision. They understood why their parents had made that choice, and they didn't argue. In fact, Sharon said that after the documents were signed, the entire family felt more at peace. It removed some of the fear about what the future might bring. Everyone knew that Ozzy and Sharon had made a thoughtful decision, and it was one based on compassion and care. Ozzy's death marked the end of an era, not just for rock music, but for a generation that grew up with him. He was more than just a singer. He was a symbol of rebellion, survival, and honesty. He never pretended to be something he wasn't. He made mistakes, admitted them, and kept going. He showed people that even with flaws, you could still make a mark on the world. And in the end, the final truth came from the woman who stood beside him through it all. Sharon's voice had always been strong, but in that last message it was full of love and grief. She reminded everyone that Ozzy was more than a rock star. He was a husband, a father, and a fighter who never gave up. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss more stories about the icons who changed music forever.